Have you ever met someone who looked human but wasn't? Here's my story. I went out with my friend for her birthday. Her boyfriend was there, and I was meeting him for the first time. He was totally nice, good looking, friendly, personable, but it felt like nothing was there, like there wasn't a being inside of him. I never experienced that before or since. It wasn't negative, it felt neutral, but vacant. Someone said I probably act like this. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I've never experienced anything like that. We saw Santa Claus. This happened around 2001, 2002. I was about 3 or 4 years old, and my sister was 8 or 9. It was in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, going into Christmas morning. To set the scene, we lived in a small ranch style house. The living room opened into the hallway that led to the bedrooms, and every Christmas, my mom positioned the tree so that it was visible from the hallway. We could stand there and see it glowing in the dark, lights twinkling. That night, I woke up suddenly, jumped out of bed, intending to run across the hall to my parents' room, which was directly opposite of mine. But before I could make it there, I stopped dead in the middle of the hallway, facing the living room. Under the tree stood a man in a large red suit placing toys beneath the branches. I remember feeling completely awestruck. He turned toward me, raised a finger to his lips to gently say, shh, and smiled. I suddenly felt embarrassed, as if I'd broken a rule by being out of bed and worried that maybe somehow this would cost me and my presents. So I turned around and ran back into my bedroom. What happened next is the part I still can't explain. My older my older sister suddenly burst into my room, grabbed my hand, and told me she had just seen Santa's sleigh. We ran to her bedroom window together and looked outside, and as unbelievable as it sounds, we saw the sleigh, the tiny little reindeer, pulling it into the night sky, and then it was gone. To this day, I asked my sister about it, and she remembers it. We both remember it vividly, but neither of us can make it sense of what we saw. Was this a hallucination? Some strange coincidence? I honestly don't know. My dad still swears that the figure I saw was not him, and I believe him. Both of my grandfathers passed away before I was born, so it couldn't have been them either. Maybe an intruder? But nothing was stolen. And that explanation doesn't account for what we saw out the window. I don't know what it was. But if anyone else has experienced something like this, I'd love to hear it. Someone commented, my two uncles saw him too. The first uncle is a bit special, perhaps autistic, but back in those days, he was just considered the odd one. He heard him on the roof and then saw him inside, and he woke up the older brother too, and he saw him as well. We never heard about this until we were adults, and they talk about it in an uncomfortable way. Their parents were not the kind to set anything up either. Both late 60s now, but still swear they saw him, heard the reindeer too. I've never experienced anything like that. Oh, I think my parents did dress up for me and pretend to be Santa Claus, but I was just knocked out. One encounter summer evening. Although this happened many summers ago, myself being 9 or 10 years old and my sister being 7 or 8, I remember as if it was yesterday. I'm 36 now. One uneventful summer evening, our phone rang in the middle of us having dinner. My mom's youngest sister had called and informed her that she was potentially interested in buying an investment property not too far from where we were living at the time. She requested we drive by after dinner so that she could gather my mom's opinion on it. My mother excitingly agreed. Also, dining with us that evening was my mom's older sister, who made it a regular occurrence to visit us every other day. We all packed into my mom's minivan and made a short 15-minute or so drive to the vacant property. My aunt had informed my mom, who at the time enjoyed gardening, that there would be a lovely garden back there. We exited the minivan and made our way around the property as if we were home inspectors. Being the kids that we were, me and my sister decided to run to the front of the house and leave my mom and aunt to do their thing in the backyard. As we approached the front steps leading to the front door, I ran up the stairs and rung the doorbell numerous times, knowing of course that the house was empty. While laughing hysterically, out of the corner of my eye, and past the transparent 70s lace curtains, stood an old man at the very corner of the window. White hair underneath, a straw cowboy hat, old coveralls, and a buttoned up plaid shirt underneath, looking out to the distance in a blank, depressive stare. I can still vividly remember the sadness that was in his eyes. It seemed to me like he was waiting and expecting for someone to return home, almost in a worried state. Startled, I ran back down the stairs to my sister, and we both hurried to the backyard to inform my mom and aunt that the house wasn't empty after all. The four of us rushed to the front and waited outside to the front gate, waiting to explain ourselves, yet the old man never came outside. We waited a few more minutes before piling back into the minivan, all seemingly confused. Once home, my mom called her sister to voice her approval. Before ending the call, my mom corrected her sister and informed her that the owners were, in fact, still living there. Confused, my aunt said that can't be. Her realtor had disclosed that her client decided to put the house up for sale in order to downsize after the husband of many years recently passed in the house. My aunt never ended up going through with the purchase. Oh, uh, Me and my roommate might have accidentally let in an entity. Hey, so me and my roommate have been recently experiencing weird things. We slept in a bunk bed. She sleeps on top and I sleep on the bottom. Every time I sleep, I always feel like there's something under the bed. Went on for a few months and I eventually started to ignore it. There are times where my roommate sleeps on the bunk of the bed when I'm not at our shared apartment. Last night we opened up to each other about how we felt weird when we slept on the bottom bunk. We felt weird and uncomfortable energy under the bed. My roommate also told me how she sleeps on the top bunk. She hears something breathing down there on my bed when I'm not at the apartment with her. We both started to freak out after that. Early this morning, we heard knocking on the door, and I checked to see that the peephole, but no one was there. We heard knocking again and looked at the peephole, but I saw someone there. We opened the door, no one was there. We desperately need help. Someone said, yes, get a priest in there now. Someone else said, get sage and do it over until you feel better. Girls' dorm incident. This was an edit. I do not have a picture. I need to get a hold of my friend to ask for it. Okay, so my sister friend and I were staying up late doing homework in my dorm room one night when something unexplainable happened. We were taking a break from homework and we were all sitting down on the floor playing the board game Sorry. My sister's long hair was out while we were playing it. It looked tangled, but she didn't care that night. We were all laughing and getting into the game when suddenly my sister just froze. She was touching her head and was like, my hair. My friend and I jumped up and looked at her hair. It was done in an old fashioned hairstyle we had never seen before. Her long hair was braided, twisted, tucked, and neatly piled on her head like an elegant crown. It looked professionally done. We were touching her hair and noticed even the little braids, like it wasn't a three-part braid, but more. Of course, we all freaked out, and my sister tried to undo her hair, but couldn't because it was so tight. My sister said, wait, let me take a picture of it. And after she took a picture, me and my sister immediately started pulling at her hair to get it undone. It took us a while to get the hair undone, and it sort of ruined the night. I think it's impossible for anyone to do a hairstyle like this within a few seconds. It was just odd and eerie sight. Someone said this is honestly the most adorable haunting I have ever heard of. I agree. Someone else said, how old was the dormitory? The original poster said the dorms were built in the late 1960s. However, the land the school is on supposedly a graveyard for people who died in a smallpox long ago. Someone said, holy crap, that's terrifying. It's weird, but it's true. I remember my mom telling me that when she was a kid, this happened to her. Once in the evening, she was playing on the balcony of her house when she saw an old man. The face was covered, but had the same clothes on and the same body structure as the grandfather, who had been dead for 4 or 5 years. He was crossing in front of the house. She was so scared and thought it was his spirit who came to talk to her grandma. She ran back to her house. She told her parents, my grandparents, what she saw, and they laughed it off and told her to go to sleep. The next day, everyone woke up except her grandma. Oh my gosh. Someone said this happened to me, but in this case, it was my grandmother. She told me very clearly, I've come to find your grandfather, son. I remember replying, Grandma, I want to come with you. She saw me and started laughing. She said, where we're going, you can't go yet. I'm sorry, I'm like saying stuff. In those days, you couldn't contradict your elders. My grandfather passed away on December 31st, 1999, just as we were getting ready to welcome the new year in 2000. Someone said, holy crap, I just got chills. Oh my gosh, that's really creepy. But also, I mean, it's really sweet that like a loved one is coming to get you, you know. My mother is still around. A couple of years ago, we had a very sick cat that needed to be put to sleep. Our regular vet was too busy, so we just had to take her animals to an animal ER. We filed out some paperwork all under my daughter's name. We got a sympathy card a few days later with the same from the same clinic, and it was addressed to Wilma Smith. That is my mother's name. I called to see if they could tell me how or where they found the name Wilma. There was nowhere to be found on the paperwork or on the computer. No one else seemed to even know who addressed the envelope. My mother has passed away 9 years before that and actually never lived at our current address. Might seem like a small thing to you, but it was a big thing to us. I think my mom wanted us to know that she was with us during this stressful, sad time. Oh, that's really sweet. Someone said that's beautiful. Mom was letting you know that your kitty is now safe with her. Aw. This happened to me on a trip with some friends. We were on the way when a strange thing started happening. Suddenly, the music would turn off and the radio station would come on. We all said maybe it was just the signal, so we left it at that. A few kilometers later, the lights started flickering. Then they went out. My friend, the one driving, decided to pull over to the side of the road to check the lights. He got out and back in, very scared, because he said he heard a wailing sound from the distance. So we decided to ignore it and continue on our way. We arrived to our destination, some cabins, and that's where the worst began. Someone said that wailing noise would make me go straight home, forget the cabins. Sleep paralysis at the same time. I was asleep in the bedroom. My husband was watching TV in the living room and fell asleep on the couch. I don't know what time it was, but I half woke up and realized I was having sleep paralysis. Not the first time, but it still startles me. I'm trying to talk myself through it and will myself to move. Then I feel this tap on my shoulder, one finger rapidly tapping. I don't know if I actually opened my eyes or I saw her in my mind, but there was a woman standing by my bed. Best description is the girl from The Ring. White dress, long black hair. She scared me, but not in the get away from me, but more like, oh, what the heck. Anyway, the tapping seemed to snap me out of the paralysis, and for some reason I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I got up the next morning and I'm telling this to my husband and just say, "Oh, I had sleep paralysis last night." And he said, "Yeah, me too. A woman woke me up and she wouldn't leave me alone and I kept tapping me all night." I asked what she looked like and he described exactly what I saw. I tell him that's my exact story and she only woke me up once. I'm freaking out, but my husband is pretty much unfazed. So, any theories on what I'm looking for, I guess? We didn't watch any movies or anything with a character like that. Someone said, definitely thinks the process is paranormal. Science textbooks will talk about how the body just gets locked somewhere between being asleep and awake, blah, blah, blah. But how can we explain the exact same woman? Sleep paralysis episodes only happened to me when I was at my lowest, doing drugs and consuming alcohol while working in the late night industry. Once I got my life back together, it stopped. Someone else said, "You got yourself something there. Can't deny it." My background is as a skeptic, but I've come around to a few last few years. I've had so many of these experiences now, I treat them like people. Sometimes they are trustworthy, sometimes they are not. Clearly, she was trying to get your attention. Just ask her what the heck she wants. Someone said, "It sounds like she was trying to wake you both up. Maybe I'm being naive and thinking the spirit was being nice, but it's possible it was trying to wake you both up to warn you about something." Oh, that is so creepy.